Welcome to the Scar Release Podcast. Join Cody Byrns as he talks with many thought leaders who have encountered trauma and other life difficulties, and yet they haven't allowed it to stop them from giving hope to others. Through this podcast, our wish is to embolden every listener. No matter your story, you can live a life of freedom and fulfill your purpose. Here is your host, Cody Byrns.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Scar Release Podcast. Today, I am being joined with one of my dear friends, somebody that I highly admire and respect. I know that you're going to do the same. His name is Dr. Ken Keis, and I'm going to read his bio to introduce him. Dr. Ken is a foremost global authority on behavioral assessment strategies and processes, an expert in leadership, purpose, and wellness. He has authored over 4 million words of content, including 500 articles, 4 books, and a dozen assessments. Dr. Keis is president and CEO of Consulting Resource Group International Incorporated, or CRG, which has served thousands of companies, associations, industry groups, and leaders over 30 countries. In the past 31 years, Ken has personally conducted more than 3,000 presentations and 10,000 hours of coaching and consulting. He is a highly sought-after author, speaker, trainer, podcast host, and TV and media guest. His latest books include Why Aren't You More Like Me?, Deliberate Leadership, and The Quest for Purpose. Dr. Ken, I am honored to have you. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Cody. Thanks for having me on and playing in this pond with your great listeners.
Well, man, thank you for being a part of this. And, you know, like I mentioned, you also have your podcast show, and that's how we had gotten connected to do this. I was part of his, and I'm going to have him on mine, and I am just super excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to happily promote one of his books, which he has told me before we went live here that he's got something special for all listeners that tune in today. So you want to stick around for this one. So how's things going? First of all,
very well, thank you. I mean, obviously different dynamics and challenges, but we're using this time just really to tool up and to fine tune and connect with great people like yourself on podcasts in connect like we were just talking off air, that we connected you with Amberly, and hopefully everybody's listened to that show, and she's awesome. So, just really touching base with other colleagues with like minds and doing well. Thank you.
Good. And now, where are you based out of?
I'm based out of Vancouver, Canada. So, of course, God's country up here, where you can actually sail, be on the beach, and ski potentially on the same day. So now I have a bias in those people that are from Seattle. Would they say what rains a little bit? Yes, it does. But when the sun comes out, you appreciate it more.
That is very true. So, are you a skier? Do you do that?
I have not as much lately. I'm just appreciating warmer weather in my age. And my number one hobby in the summer is riding motorcycle. So I'll go out on solo rides. I'll do like what they call iron butt rides, where I'll go for 7, 8, 9 hours just straight and just ride my bike through the mountains in British Columbia.
Oh my gosh. Are you a Harley man?
I am not, though.
Okay.
Everybody else around me thinks I should be, right?
Oh, okay. So what
I'm not into status. I have a Suzuki. I never thought that I would actually own one of those. And prior to that, I had Hondas. So anyways, it's been good to me. It's a bike that's treated me well. And my wife has a bike, and my son has a bike, and his wife has a bike, and my daughter rides, and now her to-be husband, and when we're recording this, she just announced her engagement last week. He has a bike. So we're just like a motorcycle gang. What can I say?
Oh my gosh, man. Well, I've never rode a motorcycle, and to be quite frank, I would be scared out of my mind to get on a motorcycle. But it is what it is. Power to you, man.
Okay, exactly.
Well, my gosh. Well, your company, tell us about that. You do a lot with the Consulting Resource Group International, and give us a brief rundown of that.
Well, if we think about the companies now, we're in our 41st year. So it was founded in 1979 by Dr. Terry Anderson. Terry was best man at my wedding, and then I bought the company from him just under 20 years ago, and I've been connected to the company since 1990. So Terry started the company. He was was just retired professor at a local university teaching psychology. I eventually helped him in his classes. And he was using Myers-Briggs as a personality assessment in his courses, and really came to discover that he didn't like it. He found it had some issues and challenges in terms of its interpretation and validity and reliability. So we switched to DISC. And everybody knows that tool. And then we found some inherent design issues with it as well. This is way back 1979, 1980. So he said, listen, I can't, based on integrity, I can't use those. So I'm going to create my own assessment for my students, never really intending to publish it, and address the concerns and the design issues I see in other tools. Well, that was called the Personal Style Indicator. It was so well received. Here we are now, 41 years later, 12 languages, hundreds of thousands of people that have completed the assessment. And, I wrote a book co-authored with Everett called Why Aren't You More Like Me, which covers our process. So now we have a track record of about an 80% switch rate to our personality assessment over others once they understand the differences. And then the other side is that the company really discovered, Cody, that we need to look at holistically developing ourselves. So we developed 11 other assessments that then work together to develop the whole person. So we have a wellness assessment. I have a diploma in nutrition and genetics called the Stress Indicator and Health Planner. And so many companies or individuals will use that to say, what are my core stress areas? We have one on self-worth or confidence. And so a lot of times people don't make the right decisions for their lives because they're lacking this sort of confidence, or their self-worth is wondering, and so they live in this fear. We also have assessments for entrepreneurs, for values. So what would it mean if I could make the right decision every time? And we believe that that's possible if I really filter through and define my core values, so I make values-based decisions. The world is overwhelming with so many different things. And then we go into things like leadership skills, entrepreneurship, learning styles, job fit for HR professionals. So all of those tools over the last 41 years have been refined and developed. And then we offer them globally online in multiple languages to resellers, like associates, consultants, coaches, or organizations or ministries will use them as well.
Very nice. And sounds like, there's a lot that you're offering there, and just to creating those assessments. What would you say is probably, there's so many different things. Obviously, each one of those target different situations, but what would you say is probably the most common? Like if we would talk about some of we could talk about your books as well, which I want to, but what would you say is probably one of the most common assessments that you would recommend for people?
Assessment for us is our personal style indicator, which is personality. And the second most popular is the values preference indicator, which is built out of it. So the research shows this, and this is our Talent Smart, which is one of our competitors or colleagues, whatever you want to call them, said that they did some research, said what percentage of people can realize their potential without them knowing their own quote unquote personality or personal style, as we call it. And their research showed that it was 2%. And here's why that's so important is we believe that people are biologically wired so differently at birth. So Cody, have you ever met some people that seem to really, all they seem to enjoy is being around and hanging around people?
Oh yeah.
And then have you ever met some individuals that if they didn't see a person all day, they would be happy?
Yep.
Right. So there's no right or wrong on that, is that we have certain orientations at birth. And thank goodness for that. I believe that we're sort of divinely created to have these orientations, because if everybody was the same, then that would really suck. We wouldn't be able to do all the things that we need to do. So we need to embrace and understand our differences. So first of all, I need to understand, who am I? What am I bringing to the table? So the last research, and this is almost old news because it's 3 years old, but Gallup did the study, said that 87% of the population is not engaged at work. So only 13% really are engaged. So why is that? I think that's the highest level of disservice. Now, personal style is one component, gifts, talents, abilities, and purpose is a separate measure. But I need to know, is the nature of the work and the nature of what I'm doing play to my strengths? Everybody talks about the Strengths Finders assessment or some of those components. So first of all, one of the things that happened when I bought the company nearly 20 years ago, and I've done the master certification with trainers around the world now, is that a lot of times people take these personality assessments to find out, Cody, how to deal with you. But what I really discovered is that people need to understand themselves first, So the research around self-awareness is most people believe that they know themselves, but the research from Tasha Eurich, Dr. Tasha, is that 95% of people are delusional, and what they think about themselves is not congruent with how other people experience them. So the majority of people don't know that they don't know that they don't know. Now, it's not a judgment. It's not a judgment, Cody, but that's just the reality. So personal style, once I know who I am, then I can start playing to my strengths. I can start owning it. And one of the things, growing up in high school, I had very low self-worth. So I'm the eldest. I'm pretty driven, outspoken, and action-oriented individual. And my dad is 88 as we record this and still alive. But I don't know to this day, I don't recall, I don't believe he has ever told me verbally that he loves me. Now, I know that he does, but he comes from a culture where affirmation and support is not part of it. So in high school, my self-esteem really sucked. And then going into college, people says, Ken, you're such a jerk. And part of the jerkness came out of the fact that my self-worth was low and I was acting out for attention to be validated. So one of the things to discover as I started to work through this work is that the reason people take the personal style indicator is not for self-centeredness, but for self-validation and self-honoring, that I am okay in my own skin. And the reality is the majority of people are not, regardless if they say they are or not, but do I come across with this, I'm okay. Now, on the flip side, I don't want you to focus on your weaknesses or challenges for development purposes. I want you to focus on it for a mitigation purposes. Here's what I mean by that, is that I'm not really great at high level detailed work, even though I've written 4 million words of content. That's another story. But I need to be aware of that. When I don't pay attention to certain details, like my expense account or doing the accounting with my bookkeeper, then there's consequences. So how do I manage those areas that I am disinterested in? And then do I hire people or bring people around me to complement me? Like if you have entrepreneurs that are watching, a lot of times to save money, they try to do everything. And that's the greatest disservice, because here's the reality. All of us have this personal style. Personal style is related to energy to put towards the environment, which includes time, people, tasks, and situations. That's our definition. And for some people, if I'm working with people, then maybe I need to be accountable. How do I hold people accountable? Because I'm just with people. Or if I'm task-oriented, how do I manage and start improving my interpersonal skills so that you even like me enough, Cody, to work for me? So all of this is getting aware of self. And then the next one, of course, is how do I work with and manage Cody? I suspect almost everybody watching this, you've met somebody somewhere along the way who irritates you, who rubs you the wrong way, that just pushes your buttons, right? Well, the reality is that they are doing or conducting themselves in a way that's different than you. In other words, opposite of your expectations or your wired. Who do we tend to be connected to? Who do we tend to be attracted to? People who are like us, right? So we have this synastry, we have this chemistry. We walk into a room and we just connect with this group of people that never knew them before. How is that possible? Well, that's possible because there's this connection. So we frame that out. And one of the reasons that our tool's so, I guess, more appropriate, and it's the #1 rated tool in the world by participants. So when participants take it, almost nobody says, I have another tool that's better than yours. It just doesn't happen. So the reason why is that we use a 4-quadrant model, and a lot of people are blends of this. So you know how people talk about colors or they talk about animals, is the reality is 90% of us are a combination of these 4 different quadrants. So we're not just one. So to define myself is, I am a, terminator or a dominator or whatever word you want to use, or a lion, is a disservice to 90% of the population. Most people are a combination. And then the one thing that our tool has recognized is 30 to almost 35 or 40% of the population is a combination of 3 or 4 of these. So all of a sudden, I have a lot of inherent diversity. I'm not high in anything. I'm not low in anything. And so all of a sudden, when people take our tool and they get their report, they said, finally a tool that honors my diversity, my complexity, the dynamics that are going on. And when I get at the end of our 3-day certification that I do for individuals or professionals, they say, this has just been so honoring to me. And so that's what drives me as far as is to, if we want to live on purpose, I need to know myself. I need to know what my strengths are, what my challenges are. And then the next step is, of course, is to understand other people in that same dynamic. If I'm a leader, if I'm an employee, if I'm a team member, if I'm a parent. So, Cody, if you think about parents, if everybody watching, if you have two or more children, are they the same? No, it's the same parents, same environment. Why are they different? Or they're biologically wired different or different genders. So now how do I parent differently? So I serve that child rather than having them to kind of meet my expectations.
Yeah. Wow. That is, I mean, there's so much good stuff there. So, and I love, so it starts with knowing yourself like you said, at the very beginning. And there's a lot of people, and like you say, most people, they don't even know themselves or why they act as though they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's searching ourselves. And that's what these assessments help pull out of people.
Absolutely. One of the
And
things that go ahead.
I was going to say, what would be a way for people to start maybe taking some of those questions, asking themselves to find out who they truly
Mm-hmm.
are?
Well, one of the things and this is what differentiates CRG from some of the other assessment companies, is you can go onto our site 24/7 to take any of the tools, purchase them, take them, complete them, be done 10 minutes from after this, watching this show. So we have designed the tools to serve the learner. It's something I do with you, not to you. In the psychological world, there's this whole debate. If you go back 30 years ago, psychologists used to believe this, and I don't believe it at all. It says that I'm the only person qualified, Cody, to tell you who you are, because you couldn't possibly know. I'm the one with the training. Well, that's bunk. The only person can be inside your head and your soul and your mind and your spirit is you. So the only person who could validate that this is actually congruent and it feels at peace and it works for you is you. Now, yes, as a facilitator, an expert, we can we can help give you the framework, help you to understand what's going on. But in the end, it's your own acknowledgement of it. So all our tools are built for the learners. So our second most popular tool is the values preference indicator. And we make this comment because we have e-courses around these too, is what would it mean, Cody, if you could make the right decision every time? And so the reason we say that is that situational decision-making isn't possible today. We talked about at the beginning of the show, the complexity. So people need to stand back and say, what's most important to me? So first of all, before I can make values-based decisions, I need to confirm what those are. So in our values assessment, they are behavioral or internal motivators. So example, one of the values on our list is tranquility. So we also have a needs and fears grid. So their fear is conflict. Well, I remember being brought into an organization. They had a 400% turnover with the group of employees. And it was a call center, but it was a credit collection call center, Cody. And the manager had been hiring all these people with tranquility as a value. And I said, why are you doing that? And he says, because I want to have the nicest credit collection department in the country. And what they didn't realize is every single call was stressful for the individual. So he was well-meaning, but that's why he had a 400% turnover, because the nature of the work did not match the nature of the person, and their engagement is not sustainable. A lot of people watching this, you felt guilty because you just couldn't apply yourself long-term to a situation, a role. And it's not that you shouldn't take responsibility for your situation, but sometimes you're blaming yourself in a guilt or a shame point of view, when really the ownership is that you need to get clarity that the role doesn't match you, and having long-term sustainability is physically, mentally, and emotionally impossible. And so that's part of this release, freedom. Woo! I'm finally in the zone that I'm doing. Now, obviously, if you look at this does not work for me. If I'm on a stage with 5,000, 10,000 people, my energy actually goes up. I said, people said, Ken, do you get nervous? Never. I just do not get nervous. I get energized. I get excited. And biologically, it's almost the same thing, but it's just turned in a different way. So my wish is that every single person watching this would be true for them. There was a study done by Brendon Burchard in his book, Habits of High Performers. And he said, out of these 1,500 high performers, what was one of the top habits of these individuals? Well, the number one habit, if I recall correctly, is clarity. So when I have clarity, I can have movement. I don't have confusion. I don't have doubt. I don't have this, I'm wondering, am I making the right decision? And so when I got into this profession in 1989, I actually came out of sales into sales training before I got connected to CRG. And I joined the National Speakers Association in an individual in Seattle, Washington, created a program called Source, which is actually the originator of sort of the starting point of the Quest for Purpose book. And I went down and drove him and saw him as a coach. And here's what was my question, is that I knew that my purpose was to serve others, but I didn't really have a high level of clarity on it, meaning who I was supposed to serve and what was I supposed to do. So out of that 6 months worth of work, and journaling, 60, 70, 80 pages and doing all the sort of work, is that my purpose is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose. So my purpose is to help you, to give you tools and resources so that you can live yours, both in the context of work, personally, and family. And so that's what really came out of that. So all of my work now is around this whole self-awareness, this optimizing and realizing your potential. And so that's where the freedom is. And that's the same thing for everybody that's watching this. Every single person, if you believe it or not, was divinely created for and with a purpose. So the key is I need to search it. I need to look for it. And the challenge, of course, Cody, is we have well-meaning family members. And Cody says, well, I'm just going to start my own podcast. I'm going to start my own business. What? Are you kidding me, Cody? What are you talking about? Why don't you get a real job? And so people, I make this statement on almost every podcast, is that every single person, especially today, has an opinion. Very few people have wisdom. So everybody has something to chime in on. It says, listen, I'm going to tell you how to parent and I've never had kids. I'm going to tell you how to run a business, but I've never had a business. I mean, this is all kind of, okay, fine. There's an old saying, I want to be aware of what people think about me. But in the same time, if I worry what other people think about me constantly, then I will never live my own life. My own life will be what everybody else thinks it should or could be. So one of the, I'll call it destructors in our society today, is this quest to appease other people or look good or whatever, or worry about what other people think. You just got to let that go. You really do. And it's one of the character traits I talk about in the Quest for Purpose. Is yes, you want to have advisors, you want to have people that you live let into your circle that help you. But the reality is, if I have an unsolicited opinion about what I should do in my life, sorry, I'm not interested in it. Like, take a hike. You're God. I love you, but go away. I'm not interested in it. Your opinion to me is none of my business. So that's why I got that from another speaker. So that is part of this development. Now, the other side, when we think about purpose, and I talk about it in the Quest for Purpose. So again, make sure at the very end of the show, we'll give you access to the free book.
Yes.
I talk about mindset, and I also talk about character traits. So there are some people who work through, and life leaves clues. So what you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing leaves clues. You need to do the work. So I remember my son, I'm distracting myself here a moment because I have a little dyslexia, so I'm moving off the side there. Dyslexic and written 4 million words of content. Like, who would have figured? But my son was in university, and his friend says, I see your dad has an assessment there. I'd like to take it. How much is it? He says, well, it's $45. $45? I'm not going to spend $45 to buy assessment. That's way too expensive. And then that weekend, he goes to a movie, buys a pizza and has a beer and spends $85. So, so when we think about what's most important, it's to develop yourself, to invest in yourself, to, listen and watch Cody's shows, because he has great guests that be able to encourage and help you grow. So the number one activity is to develop yourself, invest in yourself. You can't take that away from yourself. So my encouragement is that you have to do the work. When I was meeting with Dick Bowles, he just passed away recently, a couple of years ago at 92. He wrote the book, What Color's Your Parachute? And I said, why do we have so many people disconnected from work, from life, what's going on? He says, Ken, in one statement, he had 50 years in career development. He says, because people have not been willing to do the work. You have to roll up your sleeves. It says, if you have confusion, if you don't know your purpose, then your purpose is to find your purpose. That's it. And so stop trying to figure it out, just back away. And the other one is don't beat yourself up for not knowing. because the question, and this is the challenge, Cody, the question is, what's your purpose in life, Cody? Come on, give it to me right now. And it's too big of a question. So what I do in the book is I break it down step by step and give you these little pieces that by the end, you'll have this complete picture. So just like puzzle pieces, there's 1,000 pieces in the puzzle. It looks overwhelming, but then one piece at a time, and then the picture is revealed. And then, of course, life is always evolving. When I started in this industry, Cody, and I know I'm dating myself, I look really young, is there wasn't even email. I had the sole source contract to work with Chrysler to do all the soft skills for a decade. I commuted from the West Coast to Detroit every week for a year to develop some programs for them because we didn't have anything online. So here we are, we're on Zoom, we're recording this. This didn't even exist. And then, of course, the invention of the computer with Word documents was how I was able to write. My grade 9 English teacher said I would never amount to anything because I couldn't read or write because of my dyslexia, which we discovered when I was doing my MBA. And so as part of that, there are some hidden talents that all of us will reveal, or many of us will reveal over time. So when in my 20s, no way would you ever have convinced me that I would have written all these books and authored all this content. Speaker, yes. Writer, never. And yet now, if I position myself, I'm an author who speaks. It's really what I produce content to be able to help others to realize their potential, to live a life on purpose. And that's my purpose. That's what energizes me. And when people get connected, and the greatest service, everybody watching this, that you could do for yourself and people in life is for you to get connected to your purpose. And here's why, because you will have your highest level of contribution, your highest level of energy. There's this myth of motivation, which I talk about in the book. You know what? When you have an interest. So do you have any hobbies, Cody, that you like?
Oh, absolutely. Juggling, computer, making videos.
So can you get lost in the video making? Meaning all of a sudden, like 3 hours went by and you said, where did that go?
Oh,
That's what interests do. When I'm on my motorcycle, you say, that's crazy. 7, 8, 9 hours. Yes, my arm hurts, my butt hurts, everything hurts, right? But that is my zone. But part of it is my thinking, right? If you have dyslexia or ADHD in some way, this really focuses you. And that's why I just enjoy the freedom and the wind in my face. And that's what works for me. I'm not judging anybody else who dislikes it, or like you said, you don't want to get on it because you're scared. But fearful. So for some people, you love golf and you get out there and you hit this little white ball all over the place and you're frustrated, but you still love it. So interests really draw us. They energize us. Give me an audience of 5,000 people in a stadium, which we'll have back soon enough. And I can't explain it, but that is when my best work comes out. And I remember doing some conferences last year, and I've been, as we mentioned in the opening, I've done 3,000 presentations. And something happened a few years ago where I just moved into another level. And at the end of a presentation, not that long ago, it was actually in Texas. I got at the end of it and says, I've never enjoyed this more. At this moment, I have never enjoyed this more. And what happened is I moved from ego, where I'm trying to impress people, to really service, where I said, you know what, I'm here to serve these people. I'm here to honor them. Yes, I want feedback about getting better, but I'm not worried about what people think. And it was just this place to be able to be in this honoring and responsibility to serve and to help others. And it was just said, wow. I mean, people say, hey, aren't you ready to retire? Are you kidding? Moses was 80 before he had his first real job. So I've got lots to go, right? So let's go. Hopefully you can see the energy still here. I'm not fighting this. I'm not trying to say, oh, Ken, please have energy. No. So for you, for the people watching, this is available to you. This is there for you. And so don't think that it's not possible. It absolutely is. Now, it might take you a little bit longer, it might take a little bit of effort. So what? What were you going to do a year from now if you didn't do it? You'd still be frustrated. So get on with it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I can tell you, even from an entertainment perspective too, I used to do a whole bunch of circus shows, and, getting in front of a big group of people, there's nothing that it's you're in the zone, and you feed on the audience, but you're there to entertain, or as a speaker, you're there to serve them. And when you're in your purpose, that's when life starts really getting happy. And it is unfortunate there's so many people in today's world that they don't know their
Mhm.
purpose. And out of that, a lot of other hurdles come along and they're just going in circles. And so it's taking the time to work on yourself. So I love that. And I highly encourage anybody that is listening or watching this to take the time out to go to his website, take some of these assessments, do some work on yourself. It's only going to better you and better those that you're working with. And you'll be able to find those people that you should be cooperating with. That,
Well, is it now as appropriate to let them know where the free gift is going to be?
yeah, let's
Is
do
that
it.
okay? Okay, so you're going to get a full e-copy of The Quest for Purpose. And so I'm not giving you just a chapter, all of it. And if you go to kenkeis.com, so it's KenKeis.com/SCAR. I don't know where I got that from, Cody, but anyways, so it's a hidden URL. And we know that you watch this show, and it will be in the show notes. Cody will post somewhere along the way. And if you have any questions or anything to follow up, and then of course, crgleader.com is where all the assessments are hosted. And so people can go online and take them, learn about the other books, Wired to More Like Me, Deliberate Leadership, whatever it is that they want as well. And, you know, I think the greatest honor, as we talked about this already, Cody, is anybody that's watching this, is if you can bring your best self, and all of us are working, right? We're never get there. It's like, it's never done. That's the greatest service to humanity and to yourself and to other people around you, to be in that zone. And it's not self-centered to say, this job sucks as far as it doesn't serve me, meaning it doesn't really energize me. Now, there are some people who have attitude problems that any job they do wouldn't work. That's something completely different. I'm just talking about making sure that you are playing to your strengths and what you're called to do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And it will, you're, and just, you know, we're both believers, and I think God does create us all specifically for a purpose. And when we tap into that and we know without a shadow of doubt, we're in our divine calling, life is so much fun.
Well, I mean, on that note, I would just, and of course, we respect everybody. I didn't believe for many years, right? A decade plus or whatever. I was kind of on the fringe and just hated believers, kind of is where I was at. But now where I'm at, I just said, if this was all an accident, that just really is pretty shallow.
Yeah.
But to think that there's something bigger going on that you can rely on, and that you can count on, and that has your back, and that you have a direction to go. Oof, I don't even know how you manage without it, quite frankly, for me. I mean, that's my perspective.
Oh, I agree 100%. And yeah, because I'm operating on kingdom terms, heavenly mindset. So I love that, Dr. Ken. It has truly been an honor to sit here and to just to learn. I could learn so much from you, and I respect you a lot, and thank you for what you're providing to humanity as a whole and to leaders. And I will certainly, like you said, you sent me your book. I plan to read his book, and I encourage everyone, go to that link and download this book. This is amazing content, and you don't want to take it for granted. So please read that. Reach out to him. Follow him on his. Do you have social media?
Oh, everything. And of course, my podcast, which you've been on, which
Yes.
you know, when we're recording this, your episode's not out yet, but Secrets of Success with Dr. Ken Keis. And I think we're on 12 platforms. So all the big ones, you know, but SoundCloud or iHeart or iTunes or wherever it is, the team's got that. And on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram, I tolerate Instagram, and Facebook. I know it's a young person. I have a son who's 24, soon to be 25. Instagram is his space. Hey, go for it. Go for it. It's great.
Whatever makes you, and that's the thing, we're always adapting. Like I just got on TikTok. That's, you know, and I'm a young man, for crying out loud, but you know,
Apparently
TikTok,
not.
that's, you know, it's crazy. It's like I have two brothers, and one, he'll be 23, the other one's 25, and I'm 30, for crying out loud. But still, yeah, I feel old compared to them. So, but it's learning to use these new ways of communicating with people, and it makes a huge difference. So follow him, get in touch with this man. He's got a lot of wisdom, and I know I will certainly be doing the same. And once again, thank you so much, because I know you're a busy
Thanks,
guy.
Cody. Much appreciated.
And it means a lot. So Yes.
You're welcome.
And I encourage all of you guys to, like I said, read that book, get the content, don't miss out on it. And I hope this really inspired and touched your life, and find your purpose and work on yourself, and it will ultimately help you do better as a whole. So I love you all. Hope to see you back here for the next episode of Scar Release. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Scar Release. Please be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. And remember, no matter what scars you carry, there is hope, and you can live a life of freedom.